All right. Nice backdrop. Great to be back. This is very convenient. Fly right into the Naples little airport here, and we got a great hangar for the Sheriff's Department. So I'm excited to be here. We got a lot of folks with us. We got Commissioner Chris Hall from Collier County, Colonel Jim Bloom, Under Sheriff for Collier, Marco Island Police Chief Tracy Fresano, Naples Police Chief Ciro Dominguez, Todd Everly, Director of the Southwest Florida Public Service Academy, and Deputy William Lloyd, whose story you will hear a little later. So I don't think it's any secret to people who've been following what we've been doing over many years that Florida is a law and order state. It's something that we understand is important. We know that that is the way to improve and maintain a high quality of life. We looked at some of these other states that were going at it in a different direction over many, many years, and we never budged from our commitment to law enforcement and to making sure we had strong public safety. But I do think it's interesting to just kind of look back and think about, where was the debate in this country, say 6 or 7 years ago? The debate was largely about releasing criminals, and you had different iterations of that in different parts of the country. You had people that wanted to reduce the amount of time people needed to serve when they committed crimes. You had movements to eliminate bail so that people didn't have to even post bail, they just get released. And then, of course, you saw the BLM riots, you saw attacks on law enforcement, you saw movements to defund the police. And we can say definitively, any jurisdiction, city, state, that indulged in that during that period of time, 6, 7 years ago to the present, that those forays, those policy forays failed. And they failed miserably. And they failed in ways that have harmed an awful lot of people. I mean, who would think that you would have these district attorney candidates running for office around the country pledging to not enforce the law against people that are dangerous? And then that gets them more funding by people like George Soros, if you can believe it or not. But that was happening, and we had examples in Florida, and I'm the only governor that's removed Soros prosecutors from office because I understand it's a threat to public safety and you got to do your job. But if you think about, okay, releasing people early, that has failed. Not having bail, cash bail, that has failed. They tried to do that in Florida. Miami-Dade County, somehow the chief judge of the circuit was putting forward this thing to basically mimic New York and Illinois. We got wind of that, and let's just say that died a very sudden death because we weren't going to let it happen in Florida. So that didn't happen. There were, when I was first governor, there were proposals in the legislature to water down penalties, let people out. We squashed that big time. Then, of course, we had the BLM, the Summer of Love, 2020. You had massive rioting across the United States of America. We were very clear, that's not going to fly here. You can have your whatever political things you want to do. The minute that you go into disorder, chaos, looting, mob violence, you're going to have hell to pay in the state of Florida. And so not only did we back law enforcement during that, I mean, you remember these politicians were like protesting, bending knee, going out there doing all this. It was basically virtue signaling. But the implications of those positions were very dangerous. So we stood firm on that. You did not see Minneapolis happen in places in Florida. And we were proud of it. Then we did legislation to say that we are going to make sure that if you loot, if you're rioting, if you're engaging in mob violence, even if it's a liberal judge, you're not going to get a slap on the wrist like they do in Portland. They riot in Portland, they slap them on the wrist, put them out, just do it again. Oh, okay, then do it. What purpose does that serve? That doesn't deter anything. So for us, we said very simply, if you do those things, you're going to jail. And that's just what's going to happen. And as a result of that, people they know the inmates don't run the asylum, and so that has a strong deterrent effect. We also said we're not going to allow you to commandeer roads for your political agenda. And this is something that I really believe very strongly that we have to draw a very hard red line against. I don't care what your cause is. To take over a road and make people wait in traffic, that doesn't fly. First of all, it defeats the purpose. Even if someone had sympathy with you, they have to wait in traffic. And then you may have an ambulance that needs to get through. You may need to have police. You may need to have someone needs to pick up kids. There's all kinds of issues. So I just can't understand why they've allowed that in other parts of the country. So we did that. We made sure. And you as a motorist have a right to not have a mob come descend on your vehicle. You have a right to get out of Dodge if they're doing that to you, because they surround the cars. The people driving the car would stop because they're trying to be considerate of the mob, and then the mob would drag them out of the driver's seat and start beating them to a pulp. Well, nobody should have to deal with that. You have a right to defend yourself here in Florida. But then when they did the Hamas protest a few years ago, they're taking over bridges in New York, taking over streets in L.A., all these things. They tried to go to a street in Miami, and they lasted 13 minutes, and they got dragged off the street. They tried to do it in Orlando. They got 11 minutes, and our highway patrol yanked them. And so we're just not tolerating the nonsense, but it makes a huge difference for the quality of life of folks, and we understand. Incidentally, you hear about some of these people that are moving to Florida from some of these different places where they think a little bit different here. Some of these people have a lot of money. Listen, we don't want that stuff, that way of thinking, imported into the free state of Florida. We want to continue doing what works, and we don't want to see those failed experiments brought here, however way you slice it. People need to look, and they need to look at the scoreboard. They need to look what's worked and what hasn't worked. And so you have all this backdrop of all this stuff. What has that meant for Florida? Crime rate's at a 50-year low. And it's not just the really bad criminals that we lock up. We've been doing, unfortunately, we've got people that have committed some really, really heinous crimes, and that's led to capital punishment. And so as governor, I have to oversee these executions. And, it takes a long time because they go through all these appeals, and the courts have said they have to go through federal and state and everything. So they go through this process. It takes a long, but then at some point, they're ready. And I started talking to some of the families, and they were just very upset about how long it takes. And I just thought to myself, I don't want to be part of this problem. If they've gone through this and they're there and they've committed these heinous crimes, I have a responsibility to make sure we're processing those. And so we've processed a lot in the last year or two for sure, but that gives relief to a lot of the families. I was out, I'm not going to say which part of the state, but I was out, and I'm like talking to people. We think we were going to do an event or whatever, and someone was like, "Hey, this one would like to talk to you." And I look very sad-faced, very just it almost like it seemed like a little agitated. I thought she was mad at me. I was like, "Oh man, what did I do now?" But she just gave me a hug, and she said, one of the other governors had said they were going to do this, and they never did it, and you signed it, and finally we're going to get justice. So that matters too. I think it should be done quicker, but I think ultimately the courts have created that mess on there. So we've done that as well. But even smaller crimes, it was interesting. You'll have these places like you go to a drugstore in some of these cities, and it's all under lock and key. It's like I need deodorant, and I got to have them unlock the safe to buy like this. It's like toothpaste, really? And so you see that San Francisco, a lot of the stores just eventually closed because they legalized theft. You could steal, as long as you didn't steal 1,000, you could steal, and they basically wouldn't hold you accountable. So you have criminals that are just looting these stores left and right. Well, we did the strongest retail theft package against retail theft of any state in the country, real teeth in our laws, and especially so that some liberal judge just can't let people out with a slap on the wrist. And I'll tell you, a lot of businesses were excited about that, but it's more than just the value of the property that's being stolen from the businesses. It's the quality of life. When you have all this become commonplace and they let you commit these crimes, it causes a whole host of other problems. And so we believe in even the small stuff. You're going to try to yank some toothpaste? No, we're not going to let you do that either. I mean, we're not going to do it. So we've done that, and those are some of the strongest laws anywhere in the country. So I'm happy about that, and I think it's part of the reason why you have a 50-year low in the crime rate. When New York City was spinning out of control before Giuliani got in, they started focusing on small crimes, and that created a culture that led them to also reduce the big crimes. We've never tolerated any of it, but I do think having this extra emphasis that we've done on the retail theft, and the proof's in the pudding. There was a report on CNN, this is probably now a couple years ago at this point, there was a theft gang. I think they were here illegally as well, but they would steal all this stuff, sell the merchandise in New York, and then they would take the money, the proceeds, they would travel to Florida and party in Florida as spend, and then they'd go back to New York, steal, and then come back. And so the CNN person was like, I don't understand. Why don't you just stay in Florida and steal there? Why do you come back up here to New York? And they said, because they put you in jail in Florida, that's why. And so that is a lot of lead up to just say we've proofs in the pudding. We put our money where our mouth is. We haven't just come in at election time and tried to say we're for law enforcement. We actually have enacted major policies that are, quite frankly, the envy of the nation when you look at it. Now, part of it is compensating people, making sure that they're able to be recruited and retained, and we've been able to do a lot for our state law. Now, we don't fund at the state level the county or the city, but we fund our state, our highway patrol. We fund Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We've done major pay increases in recent years, 10% just this current year increase for all entry level, and 15% for people that have 5 years of service. And I actually wanted to do more. Maybe we'll get more when the legislature gets around to doing the budget, and they're not doing it on time when it's due tomorrow. But hopefully, hope springs eternal, and they'll get that done. But we may even be able to do more for that. So that's something that's very, very meaningful. But one thing that we said that we would be able to do, because I was looking around the country, I remember being out in California a couple years ago, and I get there, I get greeted by the chief of police at one of the meetings, and he's a very, very good guy, very, very good area too, like historically people would recognize. And oh, great to have you here, Governor, all this. I was like, well, how are you doing? I'm doing great. How are your police officers doing? Oh, they're doing good. They just don't want to move to Florida now because of what you guys are doing. Now, I think about it. It's just that would have been, people used to want to go to California. Now they're like, because of the way they were treated. Seattle, treated horribly by the politicians. New York City, some of these places, just awful treatment. And part of it is like, why are you going to bust your rear end, wear a uniform, risk your life, and then just have these politicians trash you, create this hostile environment? So there was a lot of people that wanted to some of them just wanted to get out of law enforcement, but we figured, a lot of them probably would be interested in coming to Florida. So we enacted a bonus program where anyone new recruits, and some of it is recruiting these out-of-state officers, but also young people in Florida that go through the police academy are also eligible. We created a program to do a $5,000 signing bonus, and the goal is to try to recruit people who want to be part of law enforcement and can help keep our community safe. So we did that several years ago. We've been highlighting different successes on that, but today was a really, really great milestone that we're able to announce. And so since we did this program a few years ago, we've now been able to award 10,000 of our signing bonuses to law enforcement throughout the state of Florida. That's a really, really big deal. We also did during COVID, they were sending all this money, which quite frankly I didn't need, and because we were open and our economy was doing good. But if you send it back, they would just give it to another state. So I'm like, I'm going to use it. So what can I do? So we did, I think 3 years in a row, we did a $1,000 bonus for every single sworn law enforcement and firefighter and EMT in the entire state of Florida. That's a lot of people. They're getting, we're having to send these checks out. They're getting the checks. And anytime we say we do bonus, that's what you get after tax. So the $5,000 is $5,000 in your pocket. we also fund whatever it would cost for the taxes on top of that. That was true for the $1,000. It's also true for the $5,000. So we did, I think, 3 years in a row where we did the bonuses for our police officers regardless, just every, and then also the $5,000 recruit. I'll tell you, for both of those, look, 5,000 is helpful. 1,000 is helpful, but I mean, man, just think of the inflation we've seen in this country over the last 5 or 6 years. It ain't what it used to be, but it's helpful, not life-changing. But I think a lot of these guys would tell me it wasn't even that they got the money, that, yeah, it's helpful to have some more money. It was just the state of Florida thought as much. Governor, I think I signed these checks, we figured out a way to do that, that they thought enough to send us this. Because they certainly weren't doing that in these other jurisdictions. They were treating them poorly in those jurisdictions. So it just shows you the state believes in the mission. Our bonus program shows that the state thinks it's a noble calling. And then a lot of the communities around Florida, very supportive of law enforcement. I know here in Southwest Florida, communities are very pro law enforcement. They understand the importance. They understand what it means to quality of life. So we're doing what I think the folks expect and are thankful for. So 10,000 is a lot. I'm really excited to be able to mark this milestone here today. We'll see if this program gets continued in the current budget. I mean, I think it should. I think you talk to sheriffs, and this is for any level of law enforcement. So a sheriff can do the 5,000. A police chief can give it to a new recruit. Our state agencies, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they can give it to new recruits. So that's pretty significant to be able to have that tool when you're trying to recruit. You know, it used to be, you go back 20, 30 years, you have sheriff, particularly in some of these rural, you'd have sheriff department. If there was a deputy opening, you'd have like 50 people applying, 100 people for one. Times have changed a little bit. I think we've made law enforcement something people want to be a part of in Florida and ensured that. But you have seen just different currents in society over these many years, and things are a little bit different. It's not as easy to recruit as it would have been decades ago. So we're helping do that, and I think we've had some really good people. Now, look, 10,000 of them, I don't know if any of them have buyer's remorse, but I can tell you none of the recipients that I've ever talked to have buyer's remorse. They are all glad that they made the trip to be in the free state of Florida and work in law enforcement agencies throughout our state. And I think that says a lot about the way we do business here that people will do. And most of them will say they're glad, they are best decision they've ever made, and they would not change it for the world. So that's just not me giving checks out that's causing that. That's a culture that's been created here at our agencies and the county level, the city level, the community involvement and community support. We're doing it right in Florida. We want to keep that going. So thank you for everyone who's been involved in this. 10,000 bonus checks is huge. That's a lot of money in terms of that. I think, like I said, because of the taxes that we pay, the total cost is not just 10,000 times 5,000, so it's more than that. So it's about $67 million that has been paid out. A good, decent chunk of that is us paying your taxes for you, so you get the $5,000 straight to your pocket. So good job, everybody. Thanks to folks in the legislature that have supported this over the years, and thanks to everybody that's been willing to do this. Okay, we're going to hear from a couple of folks. So we'll first start with the undersheriff. So Jim.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's never easy to follow this guy. It's like the third time I had to do it, and he's always so well prepared and thorough. The good news is I can cut about half this out for you. So that's good. I knew you could count on Bill. All joking aside, Governor, I want to tell you, I have several friends in leadership positions in several states. I'll go ahead and mention a couple: California, Illinois, New York, several others. And literally they joke with me saying, hey, can you tell the governor to slow down there? Because we are recruiting, we know that, and people want to come work in the state of Florida. So we'll get down to the official parts of this. On behalf of Sheriff Kevin Rambosk, I want to thank and welcome Governor DeSantis and everybody for coming today. Recruitment continues to be one of our biggest challenges in the state of Florida and the nation, to be honest. As a result of that, Governor DeSantis recognized that in order to maintain a high-quality life in Florida, and a state that believes in and upholds the rule of law, we must have professional, committed, and supported in law enforcement across the state of Florida. Florida continues to be one of the safest states in the nation and a direct result of us hiring quality, professional law enforcement. The recruitment bonus payment lets our applicants know that our governor, our sheriff, our state, and our community supports law enforcement and backs them in the tough duties that they are required to do, keeping Florida great and safe. We have experienced firsthand here in Collier County what the impact of hiring professional law enforcement has on the quality of life. The results here in our community speak for themselves. They include the lowest number of crime incidents in our history, which makes us one of the safest counties and one of the safest states in the country. There's a fine line between anarchy and chaos and high quality of life, and that's law enforcement. I swear by that, I believe in it, and I think everybody in this room understands it. On behalf of all law enforcement across the state of Florida, Sheriff Rambosk and I want to thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership and continued support for law enforcement. Don't be shy.
Good afternoon. I'm Deputy William Lloyd, and I want to start by thanking Governor DeSantis, Sheriff Rambosk, and the command staff of Collier County for providing me this opportunity to speak with you all today. It is an honor for me to be here. I started my professional career as a patrol deputy for the Racine County Sheriff's Office located in Wisconsin while serving with the Wisconsin Army National Guard. Both organizations provided me a valuable foundation of professionalism and training that I am very grateful for. While I was working in Wisconsin, my parents moved here to Collier County and started to relentlessly persuade me into trading snow for sunshine. My wife and I were able to start visiting the area and were immediately drawn to the wide variety of reasons that make Florida great, reasons such as coastal fishing, the beaches, and the wonderful climate. We then began the moving process to be closer to family and to experience living in a different part of the United States. The transition was challenging, as it always is, but I was fortunate enough to become employed by the Collier County Sheriff's Office. I immediately noticed the professionalism, dedication, and desire to serve and protect the public in a law enforcement capacity. I was hired with incredible support from the staff and received phenomenal training that would prepare me to work in the great state of Florida. I was notified that I would be receiving a bonus check from the state of Florida for $5,000, which I'm incredibly grateful for. This not only helped with the stress of unexpected moving expenses, but I was also able to utilize a portion of it to help fund my first semester of my master's degree in emergency management and homeland security. With this degree, I hope to gain skills that I can use to better serve the community during large-scale incidents. Again, I want to thank Governor DeSantis and Collier County for this tremendous opportunity and for providing a bonus that helps support my move to Florida and my professional growth through higher education. I appreciate you all for being here, and I look forward to serving Collier County and the great state of Florida for years to come. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Governor, thank you and your staff for allowing me the opportunity to speak today about something we are seeing firsthand in Florida, a new era of law enforcement officers who are choosing to leave blue cities and blue states. The Southwest Florida Public Service Academy is proud to be one of the largest public safety facilities in the state. We serve 5 counties throughout Southwest Florida, and our mission is simple, but it's also critical. We also serve all law enforcement, corrections, fire service, and emergency medical services throughout the 5 counties. In support of the governor's initiative, we open our doors to experienced law enforcement officers from across the country who wanted a fresh start in the state where they felt welcome, supported, and respected. Officers began arriving from places like Baltimore, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Denver. Many of them are still in their early 30s, already experienced and already committed to their passion. Over the past 5 years, we have trained more than 420 out-of-state officers at our academy. When we speak to them, as we try to, and they exit the academy, we hear the same message again and again. They still believe in the mission of law enforcement, they still believe in the protection of communities, and they want to serve in a place that stands behind them. They want to live in a state that values the uniform, respects the badge, and understands that strong public safety is the foundation of a free society. Governor, thank you for your leadership in making Florida a place where law enforcement officers feel welcomed. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of this today, sir.
All right, so this is, I don't think there's anywhere else in the country that can match what we've done with respect to law and order and supporting the people in law enforcement. It pays dividends. We knew it would. And these things kind of go in cycles where there's a lot of attacks, and then people realize they need it, and then this, and then that. In Florida, we've just been immune from that. We know it's important, and we're not going to waver, even if you have some type of media charade where they try to do things like they were doing during the BLM summer. We knew what we needed to do. We needed to back the folks wearing the uniform, and we're going to continue to do that. So thanks everybody for that. All right, do we got any questions back there? Yes. Yeah, and I think this is obviously manufactured, and I know different people that are trying to do it. FEMA reimbursements always take, there's people who haven't been reimbursed from hurricanes from a couple years ago. So the notion that 60 days later they still haven't gotten reimbursed, that's just not how that typically works. Now I do think with the turnover and the leadership at DHS, I do think you're going to see that approach because it's not just Florida. Other people have talked about it around the country. But yes, the president went to that event that when we did the first facility and said that they were going to reimburse. Obviously, they're also doing that with the depot that we have up in North Florida. That's going to end up transitioning into a way where they're just going to fund it directly, so there won't even be reimbursements involved. But the reason why they needed to do the FEMA reimbursement the way that they did it was because they didn't have funding for the agency at the time. They later got the funding, but the question was are we gonna help in this effort? Do you want thousands of people just released, illegal aliens, because DHS doesn't have room to put them in Florida? Do you want them in the community, or do you want them returned to their home countries? And so this is what we were asked to do to be able to support the mission. It's been hugely effective at facilitating the removal of illegal aliens. And yes, many of them are criminal aliens. Not all. If you're here illegally, then clearly you violated the law there too. But some of these people that have gone through our processing facilities before DHS picks them up, really, really bad stuff. Why would you want to be in a situation where DHS just says we don't have room for them, you just have to release them? I know a lot of folks, a lot of law enforcement locally do not want to see that happen. So we've been able to help fill that void, and that's kept a lot of people off the street who would otherwise be on the street. And we've been better than any state in the country at doing that. We have full-scale cooperation, only state where all the agencies, state and local, are required to assist and participate alongside DHS in this important mission. And I think people look to Florida for leadership. I know you talk to someone like Tom Homan, you ask him who's setting the standard, Florida, no question that we've done that. And this is just, I knew last year, that's why I did the special session. Remember, we had a skirmish with some of the people in the legislature on that. Finally, we got it done. But I saw what would end up happening. Minnesota, some of this stuff. You have local law enforcement, in some instances being directed by feckless politicians, being told to not only not help, but even to sabotage. These activists are out there, and it's just created chaos in those areas. In Florida, we work as a team, force the law, and it's worked out well for our people, are safer as a result. Yeah, no, absolutely. I said from the beginning, this was not something that we contemplate. So it's going to go on the ballot. So if I could do it today, I would just do it, right? But it's not. It's got to go to the voters. And so it was nothing that we ever thought was going to be done in the regular session. We thought it would be more appropriate for a special session. As you know, there's going to be a special session at the end of April for redistricting. But there probably is going to be another one for the budget as well, right? Because they're not going to have the budget done. So there's going to be opportunities to be able to do it. I think it'll be good to be able to have a situation where everyone's focused on that when you're in these regular sessions, you got all this other stuff happening, right? And there's ways that politicians who don't want to get things done can hide the ball. Oh, we ran out of time, this committee, all this stuff. When you do it in a special session, there's no excuses, right? It's like, okay, we know what we got to do. Listen to this, because we've been crunching these numbers. We've been doing all kind of analysis for a long time. When I became governor in 2019, now property taxes are local. It's not doesn't go to the state. We don't levy them. We don't collect them. But local governments throughout Florida took in $32 billion in property tax revenue. Today, it's $60 billion in property tax revenue. By 2031, it's going to be $84 billion on current trajectory. Now, think about it. And they say, oh, well, we need police and school. Of course we do. Did we not have that in 2019 when it was $32 billion? Okay, yeah, it should have gone up because we've had inflation. We've had population growth. Even at a couple percent, that doesn't get you to $60 billion. You account for all of that. It's not even close to getting to $60 billion. So I think the question is okay, fund education, fund law enforcement, fire, some of the key things, but some of the other stuff that's being spent, you would rather have your property taxes back, right? I mean, think about it. We have an ability in Florida, so what happens is we've got revenue from homestead properties, which is a minority of the revenue. Florida residents pay a significant minority. It's like 30% of the overall property tax revenue is Florida residents, their primary home. The rest are second homes, investment properties, Airbnb, and commercial properties. So if you just said no homestead, you're still much more than what we had in 2019, just on all the other properties. I mean, that's just a fact. So, but what happens is because, you know, anybody that's ever done this, they'll say, oh, you're going to take that. Where are they going to get the money? Well, first of all, they shouldn't spend at $60 billion. I mean, that's just the reality. How do you go from 32 to 60? And they get other taxes, too. It's not like it's the only one. We definitely don't want them to have $84 billion. I just think that that's unsustainable. But what happens is, particularly because Florida, so, you know, you have like some of these bigwigs you're hearing buying property. They're not homesteaded here. So they buy a $150 million house, second home, tax them, fine. You have Canadians buying homes, tax them, great. I'd rather them pay it than you pay it. You have some of these people that want to have Airbnbs. That's fine. You can do the tax there. But what happens is those values go up. So even if you don't raise the millage, the revenue will still grow. We just don't want it to grow on the backs of our Florida residents and their homestead property and their primary residence. So we're probably the only state in the country that can do it. And not only that, I mean, look, I've said it shouldn't be $60 billion, all this other stuff. But I've also said I'll give money to local government. We got massive surplus. I put in my budget, and it didn't need to pass this year. It really would pass next year after the amendment, if the amendment, the property tax homestead elimination was adopted, then you would then have, but I put in my budget, all the rural, we got 32 rural. So you guys have some rural. Collier wouldn't be considered, but as you go interior, you have rural. You have Hendry. You have some Highlands, some of those counties, Glades. I'll give them 100% of the revenue that they're, quote, losing from the homestead. It's chump change. It's a couple $100 million, if that's what it takes to do. I'll also take some of the surplus and I'll give grants to others for education, law, whatever. That's fine. I'll do that. I could do billions of dollars with that. But what will happen is the revenue from the Canadians and some rich guy in Brazil wants to buy a mansion in Coconut Grove, you tax him, all that stuff increases. And so you're going to end up seeing there'll be a 2 or 3 year period, and then by that time you're going to be where you are now anyways, even without doing the homestead. And I'm very confident of that. So, and we're going to be, you know, working through all that. So, but we didn't think it was going to be done in the regular session. So just let everyone know, this is priority, big time. And it's not people say like, well, why are you doing this? First of all, I'm not doing it for me. I've been in public housing for 7 years. I haven't paid any property tax. It isn't for me. It's how can you give relief to folks who are struggling with all the expenses in life. Now, there's certain things we did. I just put out the thing about, we did the big reform on insurance, and now all the car companies, if you shop around, you can get a reduction from where you were a year or two ago. They've been announcing rebates. When I first announced this, people would be like, oh, I didn't see that. Now people are starting to see it. They'll even put on your bill sometimes a reduction because of Florida reforms. So, but that reform, it's great that we did that, but it's like ultimately we don't control the prices. It's a private market, right? Same thing with property. We don't control the market. There's things we've done to make it to where things are going in a better direction and people are able to get some savings. We don't control the cost of groceries at the state level. Hell, if we tried to do that, you would not want to see the government get involved in that. It wouldn't work, but groceries have gone up. There's no question about that. We don't know what's going to happen in the short, medium, or long term on energy. You've seen oil. It's been fluctuating. It went up, then back down, then back up. We don't know. But it's not something that the state of Florida, we're not going to be able to control what a barrel of oil is. Just the reality. The one thing we can control, our voters working through the constitutional process, the one thing, 100% control is tax. That's not a private market. It's not subject to circumstances beyond our control. We can choose what we want to do in terms of the tax policy of this state. And we have an ability to give people, I think, a historic exemption for their primary residence. And that's going to be the focus to be able to do it. But if you're somebody who, and the thing about it is, someone that's been in their home for a long time, they have homestead protection, it does blunt the assessment increases. I mean, you still pay more. It's not great even if they don't raise the millage. But anybody who's bought a home in the last 4 or 5 years, they're at a much higher tax basis. If you're somebody who has never bought a home, you're paying way more in property tax than I paid when my wife and I bought our first home years ago. It's just the reality. So people will sometimes say, oh, the property tax is really just helping the elderly. I mean, it may on the margin help some elderly, but most people in Florida who are over 65 are much more affluent than the people that are 25 to 35. That's just the reality. It's going to help those folks who are trying to be able to afford a house. It's going to help them more than anybody. And that's the thing. It's like, you look at there's a whole host of factors, but the birth rate in this country, how low it is. If you don't get over 2, I mean, you're going to end up with some major demographic problems. Part of the reason is people don't feel like they can afford to have a family because they can't afford a home and all this stuff. So we got to make that, but we can't control the price of a single-family home. When you try to subsidize it, it ends up never working. I mean, you are seeing some of these prices come down. Certainly parts of Southwest Florida, you go north of here, you get into Lee and Charlotte, you've seen pretty significant price reductions. A lot of people think you're going to see more. Rent reductions, you've seen rent reductions from where we were 2 or 3 years ago. Part of that, there's more supply, but part of it is these things go in cycles. But we don't control that. We can influence on the margins, but when government tries to do it, a lot of times they make these problems worse. This Elizabeth Warren housing bill that they're doing in D.C. seems like a total disaster. Let me tell you, I haven't seen every little piece, but what would she and Bernie Sanders support that would actually solve the problem? It's probably going to exacerbate with having too much government involvement. So, and I think there's a lot of Republicans in the House of Representatives who don't like it. So we'll see. But the tax is something that we can do, and we can do very well. So I would just say, make sure you're contacting your representatives and your senators and just letting them know that, come hell or high water, you want to see this on the ballot, right? It needs 60% of the vote. It's going to be very popular, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, oh, if you pass this, we're not going to have any more services and everything, all this other stuff, which is not true. It may be true if you eliminated every tax without doing it, but this is just kind of right-sizing the revenue and giving people a lot of relief. But I just think it would be historic relief. We're also not going to try to incentivize people to move here. So if you're not a Florida resident when this is adopted, the legislature is going to be able to implement a policy so that you're going to have to be you maybe kind of reverse grandfather in where you do pay under the old system for a period of time, so that we don't have a flood of people that are coming just to get no tax. And sometimes I explain that because I'll see people from other states, oh, I'm moving if you do it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to give it to you right away. Why would I want to incent? Because that's going to drive up the cost of the housing if we do that. If we do it where there's people that are here now, well, then that's going to make it more affordable. So that's the whole key. So there's ways you can do that. There's just different things you've got to structure, and you got to make sure you structure it right. But man, I mean, imagine, and yeah, the reality is this. I mean, this is not something that is partisan in nature, because this is hitting everybody: independents, Democrats, Republicans, all this other stuff. And the reason to do it is because it's the right thing to do. It's substantive. It'll be historic. But just from a political perspective, I tell some of these Republicans, you're going to have a hard time getting some of these people to come out to vote unless you give them a reason to vote for you. I think Republican voters, and we're so sick of the lesser of two evils nonsense. We're sick of politicians that haven't done the job. And, you've had some problems in Tallahassee with some of these guys. So, what is the reason to really go out and be gangbusters about voting? To me, the property tax will be the number one thing that's going to want to get people to vote in a midterm election. And again, that's not the reason you do it. You do it because it's the right thing to do. But I'm telling you, if that isn't on, I think you're going to see a lot of people just stay home. I think they're going to be frustrated that there has been this talk and that they weren't willing to do it. But they are. I mean, 90% of the folks I talk to in the legislature want to do something big. It's just a matter of teeing it up, getting it out, and letting the chips fall where they may when it comes time to vote. So we will be in touch on that, and I'll be very active in making sure that you guys have an opportunity to do something really, really historic. And, if you're a Florida resident here and be able to live in a state that has budget surplus, we've paid off 50% of our debt since I've been governor, quadrupled the rainy day fund, no income tax. Honestly, sales tax is exempt from a lot of good stuff too, baby items, back to school, all this other stuff. We eliminated business rent tax, and then you have your personal residence can be tax-free. You want to talk about the free state of Florida? No one will be able to match that. Thank you.